party leader understand that in Washington.
Yeah, there's a question, though, about the economy versus the markets. And Alessio, I'd love you just to weigh in just real quick here on what we're pricing into markets at this point. Is it what we're hearing from Priya and others that we are going to see a prolonged contraction?
What we're seeing is necessary but not sufficient conditions to stop any of this. What we learned from China is that quarantines and factory shutdowns work. The new infection rate in China was 12 over the last week in a population north of 1 billion. So we need to follow that lead. Instead of procrastinating, if we want to solve the health part of it, the virus part of it, while we take care of financial markets, the first necessary conditions is to shut down and quarantine very aggressively so that you can start counting, is this a Q1 contraction, Q2 contraction, or something that we're going to deal with for a much longer period of time?
We've talked about it repeatedly. The longer you wait, the more you're going to have to do. I just want to bring you a headline quickly from New York City's mayor. The aim is to keep NYSE trading going with no issues. They're just crossing the Bloomberg. New York City's mayor saying the aim is to keep the New York Stock Exchange trading going with no issues. I do want to turn to the ECB because I thought it was just this one stunning line from ECB President Christine Lagarde. Take a listen to what she had to say.
We will be there, as I said earlier on, using full flexibility, but we are not here to close spreads. This is not the function or the mission of the ECB. There are other tools for that, and there are other actors to actually deal with those issues.
Priya Misra, I've been grappling with that one line through the rest of this session and trying to work out whether that was one of the most reckless moments from a central bank ever or the bravest. And I guess time will tell, but what's your initial take?
Yeah, so the central bank put that every credit investor, every risk asset investor looks for, well, she's telling you it's not there, the threshold is not here. And so, you should price that put appropriately. I think we've just been so used to central banks bailing out every risk asset at the first sign of trouble, getting easing, and now, you have one central bank. Anyway, we were worried about the effectiveness of monetary policy, but you're actually hearing even the willingness being a little bit questioned that can nobody take a loss. And so I think that it's just going to exacerbate this flight to quality because the central bank put is not as strong as people thought.
I got to go to other fossils on the desk. That would be to my right, Michael Purvis with us right now. Take a wide shot of the two fossils.
Wait, fossil.
Yeah, he's like, he's on the edge of fossil.
Come on.
I take real issue, young one, with the banner that says worst drop since 1987. This has nothing to do with 1987. No. And as Priya said, this is the heart of the matter for 12 years, the inability to take losses. We've slid along and slid along and slid along with original theories that weren't in the textbooks you had or I had or John had or whatever. We've just slid along trying not to take losses. Is this a time where we take losses?
Well, I'd rather take a 5% loss than a 20% loss, right, or a 10% loss than a 30% loss, right? I personally, my own view on the market is that we're inevitably heading lower from where we close today. That doesn't mean a tragedy here, but I think just on this point of, I think one of the fascinating things is that back in 2008, we had Lehman, we had systemic issues, right, where they were started downtown Wall Street and emanated throughout the world, and the economy. That's not what we're talking about now. What we're talking about since then, what we've had is a huge change in market structure, right? A huge financialization of the S&P 500, a huge, cash volumes of the S&P have been going down and down and down. Options and futures have been going up and up and up, right? And so a lot of the, everyone's trying to find their 1987, a little bit of 1987, a little bit of 1998 with the ruble crisis, a little bit of 2001, a little bit of 2008, a little bit of even December 2018.
Yeah, I was very different.
Okay. You're the true fossil.
I want to jump back in because I think we're losing course just a little bit. That statement today was borderline tone deaf from the ECB president. 8 years of work from President Mario Draghi can be undone with one line. Now, we can all sit here in a couple of months and maybe she'll look like a genius. But at the moment, Alessio, I thought this was not the moment to have a high-risk strategy like that from a central banker in a moment like this.
I want to believe, I do believe that she is a great communicator and that this was more of a misstep of a couple of wrongly chosen words when the bottom line of the message was, we cannot guarantee that we tighten spreads, but we are here to support, to do whatever it takes. I want to believe that this is not a question about willingness, that this was just a pure like badly chosen sentence.
Honestly, I think, John, I want to actually push back. I personally interpreted this as the death of the central bank put. We saw it from both the ECB and what they did, and we saw it from the Federal Reserve.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I think what you're missing, though, is at the height of the financial crisis in Europe, one of the most delicate moments, I think, in the history of markets, for the Eurozone at least, in the history of the Eurozone, someone stepped in and did something absolutely magnificent without buying a single bond. And President Lagarde has been totally unwilling to back that up in the last 6 months. That's a big problem. We can sit here now and say it's not a problem, but let me tell you, if the political situation in Italy gets a whole lot worse, and you don't think the ECB is going to backstop Italian debt, Alessio, we've got a much bigger problem.
No, I think that's the heart of the matter. Why did she? So if there was some deliberate intention there, why did she do it? Was it to really force the EU Commission and fiscal authorities, or at the European level, to basically scrap the Growth and Stability Pact, turn loose the individual countries, and say you guys can act much faster and address this? Because there is a risk. What we know, Draghi did tremendous work, but what the risk of that is that he may, because of his success, he may have postponed the required fiscal adjustments and coordination within Europe for the last 8 years.
Well, right now we might not have a credit problem in Europe on the sovereign side, but in corporate credit, we have a much bigger problem at the moment in the United States and elsewhere. Credit spreads were so tight to start the year, and then they started to blow out big time. And Taylor Riggs, this is the concern this week.
100%, and we just got the news a few hours ago, of course, within Lipper Investment Grade getting the biggest outflows that they've had on record, $7 billion. High yield also getting big outflows. What that means is everyone's peddling into treasuries, and then I guess cash would be the other flip side of that. Let's come and take a look at high yield energy spreads blowing out, this isn't the chart, but blowing out to 15%. That is 1,500 basis points over treasuries. We will get you that high yield spread when we can. The problem here, come inside and take a look at my terminal, is that the entire investment grade debt, triple Bs make up 50% of that. If a fallen angel scenario occurs, that could be very problematic if there are forced sellers in the mutual funds that can't hold some of that high yield debt. Also a problem given that triple B spreads right now are at 229 basis points. Scott Minerd over at Guggenheim said watch that spread to blow out to 400 basis points, Tom.
Taylor, I'm so glad you mentioned Mr. Minerd. You look back in hindsight at what people have said. I know Mike Wilson to join us from Morgan Stanley, who looks like a genius through this crisis. And it's extraordinary how Scott Minerd has been out front of the shocks of the system. I want to go to Invesco and all of your abilities, particularly with the Oppenheimer acquisition and international investment as well. Chairman Powell, a central banker to the world. We see the bond stresses that Taylor just gave us as well. Tonight, what is a Brazil with a 5 real? What does Turkey expanding out near the record weakness? What do they need from Chairman Powell to